In my cup, I've been wanting something I can feel.
How's it going, everyone? Managed to start this at 6. I'm kind of scrambling here at the end. Okay, let's not do this all day. Okay. All right. All right. Last night's fight night, headlined by the Woodley Burns fight, which was an absolute banger. On the undercard, um, Mackenzie Dern came back. Her last fight, she had her first professional loss. Bounced back after about a year, I think, off. Um, Fan favorite, absolutely dominated her fight. First leg lock submission in women's UFC history. That was pretty exciting. I'll be honest, I did miss, I think, all but the main event and the fight before the main event. But I did watch the highlights. She absolutely killed it. Um, then there was the Billy Q and Spike Carlisle fight. No, sorry, there was the Brooke Weaver Roosevelt Roberts fight. I did not watch that one. Yeah, rear naked choke. That's obviously pretty impressive. But all honesty, did not watch that fight. The Spike Carlisle Billy Q fight. That was a banger. Spike Carlisle, man, like how do you walk away when you're a professional, man? You fought how many times now? 11 professional fights, and to walk away at the end of that um, period first round before it even ended, almost cost him that fight right then and there. But he did lose in decision to Billy Q. I think most people would agree with how that fight played out, and the end result. Um, then those heavyweights, Sakai versus Ivanov. What a banger. Back and forth fight. I think it was pretty obvious, though, that Augusto Sakai was in control of that fight, most of that fight. Ivanov would have a couple times where he would look like he was getting ready to mount something, but it never really seemed to materialize. But there was that controversial fence grab that everyone thought Sakai should have lost a point on that. I thought he should have lost a point on that. I don't think it would have changed the end result. I think he still won that fight, but how he got away with not losing a point there was pretty mind blowing. Main event, Tyron Woodley, man, what a absolute legend. Before Usman pieced him up, I really thought that he was one of, if not the best fighters at that time. But this is the UFC that we're developing into. It's the next man up. In every single sport, you're seeing these new athletes come in. In football, you're seeing your quarterback become your best athlete. In the NBA, your 7-footers are becoming your most athletic, players. Giannis comes to mind when you start talking about a guy that can handle the ball, do what a point guard does, but in a 7-footer's body, and that's what you're seeing. Gilbert Burns on the rise. You know, Woodley fought like he was defending a title. I know that's his fight style, is to counter, and he might be one of the best in histories at it. But I had this same complaint about the Adesanya fight, where he fought like a champion, but that's his job. It was Romero's job to dethrone him. So for Romero to play defensive and the counter strike kind of fighting didn't really make sense. Really confused why Woodley, who really needed to win this fight to regain his belt, how you go into this with that approach, especially when you've lost the first 2 or 3 rounds. That 4th and 5th round, you really got to come out. He waited till like the last minute to start throwing some absolute bombs. But credit to Gilbert Burns. If I'm, Usman right now, I am sweating because this guy is an absolute animal. If he doesn't give Usman trouble, I would be extremely surprised. Displayed some really nasty combinations. He's an absolute lethal striker. Any strike, any punch he throws, that might be your last one you remember seeing in a round. But credit to Woodley, fought like a champ. But this welterweight division is absolutely stacked. Everyone wants a shot at the belt, and honestly, any number of 5 guys could take it. See welterweight. Usman obviously holding that belt. Can't wait to see him fight again. Woodley was the number 1 contender. Covington, who just lost to Usman. Masvidal, who absolutely deserves a shot at that belt. But now, who gets it? Who gets that shot first? Is it, Street Jesus? Is it Burns? That's a horribly stacked division. Can't wait to see the rest of that division shake out. I think that just about covers everything I wanted to talk about on the fight night last night. Our second topic, this feud, Jon Jones versus the UFC. This is one of those things where Dana White has come out and said, listen, this guy would fight, wanted to move up, I'm down with it, but said that he is asking for an ungodly amount of money, which when you're Jon Jones, any one of these fights could be your last one. You just saw his fight with Reyes, right? Dominic Reyes. He could have lost that fight, and he has to know that any one of these could be the last one. So he's trying to cash in while he still has some value, because if you lose to one of these guys, Dominic Reyes, or you move up to the heavyweight and that doesn't pan out, I can imagine him wanting to secure the bag right now before while his value's at its peak. Dana White is saying that there's no way they could afford to pay that price. I mean, I understand if Jon Jones is paying more than you want to pay him, but where does that leave him? He's gonna give up the belt and then be done with it. I don't think Jon Jones is that kind of person to just walk away. There might be some posturing. He might give up the belt, but he'll be back. Jon Jones is an absolute legend. I think he's rated the number 1 pound for pound fighter, and I think that's well deserved. I don't think that that's any stretch to say that he could do that. That he is the pound for pound fighter. Number 2 is Khabib, and I would say that's fair. I think that until Jon Jones comes out and says what that number was, everyone is going to side with Dana White and say, that it's about money, and you're not going to get common everyday Joes to side with a guy who is making millions of dollars doing something he loves doing. But Jon Jones does have the leverage, if they want him if they want him to fight, then there is a price tag attached. Bear with me here, trying to make sure everything sounds and looks right with this.
Complexity curse a little bit.
Nope.
Why do you think maybe that performance level does?
Nope. Okay. We're just gonna assume everything is going well. If you guys are having trouble hearing me or anything like that, just let me know so I can adjust levels. Last couple of streams I did, gaming, the audio seemed okay. Might move that mic a little bit closer. Hey. Thanks, Tyra. All right. So it looks like we're doing okay here. That alert was not right. Hi. Welcome to the shit show. Trying to get this audio. It sounded pretty quiet when I listened to it here on my phone. Alert box. There we go. Let's move this alert box so people can see it. I should probably move it higher up on this, right? There we go. Okay. I think I got this. Cleaning. Yeah, I did not get as much house cleaning as I needed to today. Like, you guys can see all my stuff there. There we go. All right, so that takes care of that one. The return of the NBA. This is one I assumed would take a good amount of time to talk about, because not only with the return of the NBA are we talking about what we might see with the NBA playoffs or the play-in tournament that they're suggesting, but we also the long-term ramifications of the coronavirus with how this is going to affect these sporting events in the future. Are we going to see every time that there's any kind of flu or sickness going around, are we setting the precedent that that we have to take fans away from sporting events or doing these kind of things? Because I think in retrospect we'll find that the coronavirus was no different than the seasonal flu or common cold, but the concern was valid, and I wonder, do we see smaller capacity stadiums and it become just this online thing where we watch on TV or stream it online to watch sporting events. There's some sports that you'll hear they're better in person, and there's nothing like going to a baseball game, a football game, a basketball game, and to take that experience away, that's rough. I can't imagine people being on board with something like that, but that might be where we see the evolution of sports go. We might see limited capacity sporting events or just no fans at all. I don't think players will be on board with that. I think the energy that a crowd gives is, you can't put value on that as a home team to have a full stadium. Just, you'll hear players talk about it. It's electric. The fans make the environment electric. There's a lot of pushback from players not wanting to come back to play for no fans. You're seeing it with the UFC fights, how quiet it is. You can hear these guys grunting. In that main event last night, Tyron Woodley tried to pull a move on Burns and Burns like hearing that noise, like looked at him like, did he really just make that noise? So it definitely adds a level to it. I think I'm enjoying these UFC fights, just hearing what actually goes on that you cannot hear when with a full packed house. But when someone lands a knockout or a submission, even hearing that on the TV, the crowd going wild, it's undescribable, you know. So I definitely think that the next year will be very interesting. I have a feeling though that in regards to most things in our life, especially sporting events, that that eventually we'll move on from this. We'll learn. We'll take different steps in how we handle this and how we handle being out in public. You know, I think for the next year or two, you might see people being really conscious about, you know, sanitation, and you might see a reduced amount of flu cases and common cold cases. You know, anything that's transmittable like that. People will be, you know, wash their hands when they get home from going out, and when they're at a baseball game, you know, they won't be hugging the guy next to them or high fiving. Although enough stadium, you know, $5 beers might change how people feel about that. But so the NBA is coming back. I think they've set a return for July 31st for the start of whatever they're going to be doing. So end of June, beginning of July, you'll start seeing teams get back into camp. There's pushback both ways, whether there's, you know, if we don't have a play-in with, you know, the bottom, you know, what would you say, the 6th through 12th seeds, would they play in, you know, and if we don't, do those teams want to come back? Do they come back? The players don't. If there's nothing to play for, the players that are not going to be playing in the playoffs do not want to come back. I don't blame them. You know, to come back and get game ready for 5 to 10 games, I just can't see it. But I do like the idea of the play-in. You know, this is a season that has been interrupted in the middle of it. Baseball has been fortunate that it happened before it even started. I guess you say fortunate, if there's anything fortunate about these circumstances. But I wonder if the play-in is the best option, and I think so. I think that would be very exciting for television, seeing some teams that could maybe make a push, you know, that normally wouldn't have, that would have been on the outside. I wonder how that affects would affect the lottery, the draft lottery, because, you know, if you didn't make the playoffs, then, you know, you were in the draft lottery. But now with teams that would make it, you know, if you didn't make the play-in, are you then, you know, back in the lottery? And if you do make it, and let's say you win the championship or even make it to the NBA finals, do you end up with the second to last pick, or are you back where your regular season win-loss said you would be? And is that where you know, how many ping pong balls you get? But, you know, I'm looking here at the NBA standings, and right now teams that would make the play-in, but wouldn't make the playoffs outside. You got the Wizards in the 9 spot. I don't think John Wall's coming back, so you're watching the one-man show of Bradley Beal take on, you know, whoever it is, however they see that. Secondly, you'd have the Charlotte Hornets who, good team, not great in the East, you know, but I think their record isn't indicative of what kind of a team they are. I apologize for the alerts. The Wizards the Hornets are a good but not great team, and they're only good in the East. You know, in the West, with their record, with the way they're playing, they would be, you know, vying for probably a top 5 pick. The Bulls would make it, in my opinion, a horribly talented young team. I think that they're missing a coach and a veteran player to turn that around, but to me, that's an exciting team. I love the young talent they have there, and they're really just a strong veteran leadership and coach away from being, you know, a threat in the East. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. The Knicks, you know, the Knicks, not a good team. That's not. I don't think team anyone wants to see. It's a shame the Hawks aren't win higher, because they would be in But maybe in this play-in, everyone plays. Maybe that's how they get everyone back. I don't want to see the Cavaliers in the playoffs, though. No disrespect. Over in the West, the Blazers. So anytime you got Damian Lillard in there, anything's possible. Any type of a run is possible for sure. The Pelicans, which is why everyone thinks this play-in's even being discussed, with wanting to have Zion Williamson, and I don't blame them wanting him in because he is must-see TV. He boosts ratings in anything that he participates in, so I do not blame them wanting to try and maybe make up some of that revenue by having a team like that in there, and especially if they make any kind of a run. Any kind of a run they make, it would be gravy for the league. The Kings would be the third team in. Some talent on that team, but another team that needs a strong veteran star. They're past the point of having strong veterans. They need a veteran star there, and a coach. No disrespect to Luke Walton, who I thought deserved his job in LA. I thought he deserved to let that talent blossom and coach it up, but a lot of personalities there, and then when LeBron comes in, you have to give him what he wants, which is a veteran coach. There was no way LeBron or the organization was going to let the talent develop, because it would have been this year, next year that you're actually talking about the team making the next step. It'd be back LeBron and the Cavaliers all over again, just with more young talent. And then the Spurs, which DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus Aldridge, not a team that's going to make any kind of a push. I think DeRozan needs to go be the number 3 somewhere. I think Aldridge needs to go be the number 6 or 7 somewhere, and the Spurs need to start over. If Pop wants to stay through a rebuild, I do it. He's an all-time coach. I still think he's got it to coach a team, that with little talent he's had in the last couple of years, to the records they've had, making the playoffs or being on the cusp, to finally see him fall off this year is definitely makes you think, where does this team go? What do they want to do? And I think that this is an off season right now where they need to make that decision. What direction do they want to go as an organization? The Suns is our team that I would want in. I think Devin Booker is lightning in a bottle. Hey, streets. And I think that team is another example. Young team needs a strong veteran like point guard. I'd love to see Chris Paul go there, but they don't have the cap space for that. But what it would do to have a guy like Chris Paul there for Devin Booker's maturity, advancement, DeAndre Ayton's advancement as a player, but there's no way they can make that money work. So if we don't have the play-in, I think that you got to go straight to the playoff. You can't mess around with some kind of a regular season, because you're never going to get these Golden State Warriors who are 15-50, a lock for the number 1, or at least the most ping pong balls in the draft. How are you going to get the Timberwolves to come back, the Cavaliers to come back? I would want to, if I'm the coach of the Cavaliers or the Timberwolves, I want to play those last games out, just to get something positive to build off going into next season. I think for the Timberwolves, that's key. I think that they have something cooking there. If they could somehow pry Devin Booker from the Suns, I think that is definitely an interesting squad. But again, those kind of guys, they need strong veteran leadership and a strong veteran coach. If you get Greg Popovich with those 3, I think that's something else. But a lot of these teams, these Bulls, these Suns, Timberwolves, they that's what they're lacking, and if they don't get a strong veteran coach or player, then those teams will go to waste. That talent will go to waste. I see it time and time again with these organizations that make these interesting hires. Cavaliers keep hiring someone, trying to think they're getting the next, I don't know, I don't know what you would call it. They want to get the next what's Lincoln Riley. Everyone's trying to pry Lincoln Riley away in college football, and I feel like everyone thinks that they're going to get the next Lincoln Riley. They're going to pry that guy out of college ball or G League or Europe, and it doesn't work. I thought David Black got a bad rap. I thought that was a smart hire when they hired him. But just like Luke Walton in LA, they never, they didn't have, when LeBron comes to town, you don't have time to develop talent anymore. It's time to win. So, I do not want to see Zach LaVine, Markkanen, those guys, who's the Wendell Carter Jr. The Bulls have a squad. The Suns have a squad, and the talent is just going to absolute waste. The Suns are going to regret not drafting Luka Doncic, forever. That will go down as an all-time blunder there. Mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Turning mic out. Turning it out. Like to the side. Did you mean up streets or up? Up, not out. Okay, let's see. So that's the highest it lets me go in Streamlabs. Is that better? Let's see, in sound settings maybe. No. Mixer. No, I don't think the mixer's going to affect that, is it? You should be able to adjust it in Windows too. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's see. That's probably a lot better. Let me see. Does that apply? I think there's like a 30-second delay on this. I need to change that. Oh, okay, cool. Cool. All right, so I think I left off talking about the young squads, man. Yeah, I don't want to see those squads go to waste. Management, if you're out there, front offices for these clubs, hire me to run your squads. I'm telling you, I'll hire a coach. I'll find the next Phil. They're out there. Veteran coaches. You need them. You need strong veteran coaches. But none of this Mike Thibodeau stuff. I don't know if any of you have heard this rumor. Mike Thibodeau to the Knicks. It has never worked for Mike Thibodeau. The only time it ever worked for Thibodeau was when he had peak Derrick Rose. But I guarantee you give peak Derrick Rose to any coach with any idea of where, the hoop is, then D Rose peak D Rose would have elevated them. So I don't think that the Knicks trying to recycle Thibodeau is a good idea. I'm sure it's better than the garbage they've been rolling out. I was high on Fizdale. Fizdale is done in this league. I don't like these retreads like that. Tibbs is a hell of a defensive coach from what I hear, but he had more talent. He went to Minnesota where they had Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. Not to say that those guys are in the stratosphere of the top players in the league. Karl Anthony Towns could make that claim. You can make the claim that he's a top 15, 20 player in this league. And Andrew Wiggins, horribly talented, but you have these two guys in their peak, young guys, and you couldn't make that work. To me, it just shows that if he had not hit on Derrick Rose, that he probably would not have landed that job, and it wouldn't even be in discussions for the Knicks. Wiggins overrated. Wiggins, I think, potential-wise, was in comparison to the results, have been overhyped. I think the big test will be what can Steve Kerr do with a full season of Andrew Wiggins if they are serious about keeping Wiggins, which I don't think that. I think they, in value, they went down in value acquiring Wiggins from D'Angelo Russell. I think D'Angelo Russell is a star in this league. I don't care what anyone says. That kid is a star, and you downgraded in talent. And I think they picked up a first rounder in that trade. And what are you going to do with Wiggins in that first? Are you going to package that with your first to go get Giannis? Are you going to use that to go get Bradley Beal? If that's the case, then I get it. But if they keep Andrew Wiggins, they keep these picks, they try to rebuild, which I think is a good idea. And if on that team Andrew Wiggins does not achieve All-Star status, then it's Wiggins. It's a total, waste of that talent. But I think when you look at a guy like Wiggins, who, isn't a guy known for hitting these clutch shots, for creating his own clutch shots, maybe he is just an overrated, mid-level player, a guy that's number 7 or 8 in your rotation, or hell, even 5 or 6. I think a lot of teams would love to have Andrew Wiggins as their number 5 or 6. And if that's what you're counting on him for, then maybe that's what he is, and maybe that's what you need to expect from him. But I think a lot of people do expect him to be a number 2, a number 3 at the worst. Maybe he's a less. His production might be less than that of DeMar DeRozan, but he's more talented, right? I think most people would agree that he's more talented than DeRozan, and DeRozan will probably end up with a better career in the long run. I think any person in Andrew Wiggins' shoes should want to end up with the Warriors, because that's a top-notch organization. They get the best out of people. Look at what they've done with Looney, Quinn, a lot of these guys that they have turned into excellent role players on their teams, but they squeezed every drop out of them to get that. And then they people think, oh, the next step is we bring them on our team, make them a bigger part of our team, and that's going to elevate them and take them to the next step. And it's not the case. The Warriors got the most out of them. So if the Warriors can't get the most out of Andrew Wiggins, and if all he is, the best we've seen is what we saw in Minnesota, maybe that does well for them. But for a guy who's making, I think, max money, the Lakers, this was their year, man. If they were gonna win it, it has to be this year. That's why them more than anyone else in the league, maybe the Bucks, outside of the Bucks and the Celtics, had the most to prove this year, because next year is a weak free agent crop. They're an old roster that has, they desperately needed a third star to sign these last 2 off seasons to make a big 3. If it was going to happen, that was going to be it, and then they could have gotten these guys in there. But now they're in a horrible position where they were built to win this year. I think they were going to win this year. The only team I could have seen giving them any kind of trouble would have been the Bucks or the Celtics, or maybe the Raptors. But I don't I think their strongest test was going to come out of the Clippers. I think the Clippers were the ones that were going to match up with them the best, and if they beat the Clippers, they were going to beat anyone that came out of the East. With that said, I don't think that it's impossible for them to win next year, because anytime you have LeBron and you have someone, in my opinion, who's a top 5 player in why am I blanking on his name? Anthony Davis. Anytime you have 2 top 5 players in the league, you have a shot. You look back at the Lakers 2-man show of Kobe and Shaq. It's proven with 2 top 5 players in the league, you can win a championship. The Lakers then ran into teams like the Pistons, who were just super, super deep. They ran into the Celtics, who had the big 3, and that was 3 superstars. And, that was some rock, paper, scissors right there. 3 beats 2. And Kobe had garbage on those teams outside of Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum. He had a bunch of, Derek Fisher's your number 3 on a lot of those Laker teams. So I thought that the Lakers were going to win this season. I thought that they were going to win as long as they stayed healthy. I thought the Clippers, if the Clippers had gotten fully healthy, could have pushed them to 7 and could have possibly won that. And I think the Lakers more than anyone need this season to happen. The Bucks and the Celtics, I think, have a lot to prove over in the East, but not nearly as much as the Lakers. The Lakers had to win this year. You have this short window of peak LeBron playing at MVP caliber in his mid-30s. It's a shame. I'm not a big LeBron fan, but you have to respect him. He is a top 3. I don't necessarily think he's the best player in the league. I'll make arguments for peak Steph Curry and peak Kevin Durant. But right now, since those two dudes are hurt, not playing at 100%, right now, best player, it's LeBron James. Speaking of the Celtics and Bucks, when you talk about small windows, short windows, the Bucks and Celtics have built these teams. They're young teams. Best player in the league right now, Giannis. Giannis, I think what he has going for him is that he's 7 feet tall. If he's 6'7", he's not the same player. He's a good player. He's still probably a top 5 player, but I think you take that height away, and but I mean, he's not. He is 7 feet. So I mean, what is he, the most gifted? I think that clutch has to come into factor too. I mean, if the game's on the line, who, and your life's on the line. Okay, game's on the line. Your life's on the line. Do you want Giannis taking the last shot, making the last drive, or do you want LeBron taking the last drive, last shot? That has, in my opinion, has to be factored in. Obviously, there's guys that you'd probably say are more clutch, but when you got guys that are neck and neck like that, I think that's maybe where the deciding factor comes in. But are we talking MVP? Are we talking best player? Are we talking most gifted? Most valuable player? I think it's Giannis. If you take Giannis off the Bucks, I don't think that team goes anywhere. If you take LeBron off the Lakers, and you still have Anthony Davis there, and whatever else, whatever fills the void of LeBron James, I still think Anthony Davis with this Lakers squad or whatever they could have assembled still makes the playoff. I still think Anthony Davis can still, when if he stays healthy, I think he can lead a team. But I definitely think the most valuable player is Giannis. The best player, when healthy, Steph Curry and KD, but they're not healthy. So right now, the best player, it's probably neck and neck Giannis and LeBron. I probably give the edge to LeBron, just because if my life's on the line, I got to give one of those two the ball, and if that's a deciding factor, I'm giving it to LeBron. I think no disrespect to Giannis, but to see Giannis disappear last year in the playoffs, I think really took a hit to that status. I think had he taken that next step, if he finishes off the Raptors, he's gonna they're likely to beat the Sixers. In my opinion, I think I love the Sixers. I'm pretty sure they beat the Sixers, and then they go on to beat the depleted Golden State Warriors. And maybe this year we're saying, okay, no, that's done. Giannis is the killer. He's the finisher. But these Bucks and Celtics, both young squads, both have built via the draft, smart free agency. The Celtics really got bailed out by Kyrie leaving. The trade for Kyrie, the assets they gave up, turned out to be probably on par with the production they got from Kyrie. When Kyrie was healthy, he was good, but took a lot from what that team was. You saw the team take a huge step without him when he was injured, a huge step without him this year. Kemba Walker, I think, embodies what they're trying to do there, what Brad Stevens is trying to do with that team, which is play as a team. I love that Celtic squad. hate Boston, but I love that Celtics squad led, by Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart. I think if you were to start a team with three young players, I don't know that you could put together a better squad right there. And to have Gordon Hayward be the fourth guy there, or wherever you place him in that tier there, they really have something cooking there. I don't know that anyone has a better starting five. That's an all-star five right there. But with that said, every year that one of those two teams doesn't win is another year that this potential dynasty, which is what everyone's trying to build here. These two teams are trying to build dynasties. They're not going all in right now. They've made smart moves, smart free agent moves. They've got bailed out by Kyrie leaving and signing Kemba Walker, because if Kyrie doesn't leave, this squad's not the same. Kemba Walker is a much better fit. But every year they don't do this is another step towards these guys' free agency, where they're not going to be able to keep all these guys. These rumors of Giannis leaving. This is very reminiscent of Anthony Davis. First, you heard the rumors. Anthony Davis wants out of New Orleans. You hear the rumors first. Then comes the reports. Anthony Davis wants out of New Orleans. Then next thing that comes is Anthony Davis publicly says he wants to be traded. And that is a death sentence to your team, to have that go through that. And credit the Pelicans, they got a huge haul for Anthony Davis. That's another squad that has so many much young talent on their team. I think they have a good coach, but not the coach of the future in Alvin Gentry. I think having guys like JJ Redick are great for those guys' development. I hope they keep him there, even though I think he could do wonders for the Lakers or the Clippers. What a reunion that would be, right? JJ Redick to the Clippers. I would love to see that. I've been dying to find a JJ Redick jersey from the Clippers, because that was my favorite JJ Redick. So anyone who listens to this podcast in the future, if you're hearing this and wondering what to get me for Christmas, it's a JJ Redick Clippers jersey. I cannot find one. Cannot. Yeah. Bucks, Giannis. We're talking about rumors here. So, I hope for their sake that Giannis stays there. I know that's a hard market to get players to want to come to and stay in. They took a gamble on Giannis. I think Giannis, respects that, appreciates that. I think that will matter to him when free agency comes. But Giannis wants to win. You can tell he does. You see his drive. You see his work ethic. He wants to win championships, not just one. He wants to win every single year. That's the kind of guy he is. And if Milwaukee can't make that next step, he's Batman. Who's his Robin? Chris Middleton? If it's Bradley Beal, I feel a lot better about that. I'd rather have Bradley Beal there. I think that you need a killer there as your number two. Someone cold-blooded. I think CJ McCollum is that in Portland. That's why I love what Portland's got going on. I think it's a huge disappointment what has happened to the Portland season. They start getting people back from injuries, and then more injuries happen. Lillard is an absolute animal, one of the most clutch players in the NBA, might be the most clutch player in the NBA. I'm sure there's metrics that would argue that, but life on the line, someone's got to take the shot. Who is it? It's probably going to be Lillard. I want Lillard to take the last shot. My life depends on it. It's definitely puzzling what these teams might do. I know the Bucks are probably going to hang on to him, at least like how the Pelicans did up until the last year, right before the last year. I think they hold on to him until then, no matter what, even if he does come out and says, I don't want to play here. I think I think they still hold on to him until then, because I think that's right in that sweet spot where you can start to get value back for what you've put in to the player and what he's worth. I think that's your peak value, is that just like the Pelicans did, because the Pelicans had the opportunity to get the Celtics involved, but even with the Celtics dropping out of that sweepstakes, you still had, I think, peak value gotten for him with the talent that New Orleans got back for Anthony Davis. That seems to be the sweet spot. You look back at teams that have traded 2 years early, didn't really work out. Teams that waited till the trading deadline doesn't work out. So the Bucks obviously hold on to him until at least until the offseason before he's a free agent. And they'll do everything they can. But look back to what happened in Cleveland. With the first time LeBron was in Cleveland, they did everything they could. You have to credit Cleveland. They did. They just made poor decisions. They brought in people that were past their prime, and I guess that maybe they think that maybe they'll be able to regain some of that, or at least hold what they were. But most of these guys dropped off a cliff. I mean, by the time they brought in Shaq was a shell of his former self. Maybe if Shaq stays in shape during that time, then that's a different story. But at the age he was not in shape, was not a contributor to that, and that's why you saw LeBron go. They kept bringing in guys that were past their prime, not going to contribute, not going to elevate their game. They were on the downward part of their professional career, and ultimately it cost them LeBron the first time. So obviously the Bucks are in a better position right now than the Cavaliers were the first time they lost LeBron. So you can't compare those rosters, but something has to be done. Giannis either has to take the next step, or they have to bring in a new Robin. I don't think that his championship Robin is Chris Middleton. I love Chris Middleton. Don't get me wrong, but Chris Middleton should be your 3. He should not be your number 2, unless he's ready to make that next step, which I don't. I think we're seeing the best of Chris Middleton right now. But I'd love to see him take that next step. I'd love to see him play Robin, and be an effective Robin. But I'd rather have CJ McCollum in there. I'd rather have him as my number 2 than Chris Middleton. At least McCollum can pop off, in a playoff game. I know, McCollum's going to pop off in a playoff game. I know he's not going to back down. Middleton has had a record of disappearing in the playoffs. But so is Giannis. That team. They just haven't taken the next step. So I expect this offseason coming up and next offseason to paint the story of what's going to happen there in Milwaukee. Let's see. Well, that ends everything that I had planned. I do have my free talk session, which I plan to finish most streams with. So if there's anything you guys want to talk about, or any other questions you have about me or sports or esports or current events, this is the time to do it. Hopefully the last 10-15 minutes. As I go longer, have guests and stuff, it may turn into a half hour. But this is your guys'. The last part of it is your guys's. For those listening to the podcast, follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, where you can find when we're live. If you have questions you want to submit to the show, I will definitely answer them. Get on them. Definitely join the Twitch stream, where I'll answer any questions within reason, obviously respectful, sports related, content related questions. So this is your part. I did have other things, if I had time to talk about, that I wanted to talk about. The Lance Armstrong documentary, I believe, comes out today or comes out soon, and I personally have no interest in watching that documentary. I watched The Last Dance, love The Last Dance. I guess I can understand some of the controversy surrounding The Last Dance, but it wasn't something that tarnished my view of anyone. But Lance Armstrong is on the same level as Ryan Braun to me. To trash everyone around you, deny PED abuse as venomously as they did, to then turn around and it be proven that you were lying, you admit to lying about doping. The doping isn't what bothers me. It's their reaction to it. It's Ryan Braun's reaction to trash the guy who took his urine sample, to call him an anti-Semite. You ruin a man's career, reputation. And Lance Armstrong, you took shots at everyone. And when someone called you out, you trashed them too. So even though I'm sure this documentary is going to bring to light for everyone who doesn't know, I have no desire to watch it. I don't care about Lance Armstrong. These people don't deserve to be in the limelight. Lance Armstrong does not deserve to be in the limelight. He should be. I hope he's continuing to do good like he has. He's, credit to him for raising uncalculable amounts of money to cancer research, just in the publicity that he brought to cancer research. So with that said, as a humanitarian, he's done a lot. As a man, he's done some pretty low stuff. So I personally have no desire for it. I'm sure it's going to be interesting. I'm sure it's going to shed some light on everything that some of us know about that, anyone who followed that closely. I'm sure it'll be very interesting, but again, no desire to put someone, let someone be in the limelight that doesn't deserve it. The return of Antonio Brown. Deion Sanders came out, says he's working with Antonio Brown once again back in the league. I 100% support this. I hope Antonio Brown can get out of his own way to get himself back in the league, because we are talking about an all-time great Antonio Brown who, when he left, was at his peak, was still the best wide receiver. And to lose an entire season to whatever's going on with this man, I fully expect, when he passes away one day, if they get an opportunity to look at his brain, I fully expect them to find massive amount of CTE present. I don't know how that's measured. I don't know if you can have a lot of CTE, but I imagine they will find CTE present. The hit he took from, who's it? Perfect. The hit he took from him, he ain't been right since. And I hope for Antonio Brown's sake, this isn't a diss, man. There's nothing. This is not a joke. This is not, me trashing. Mental health is a serious issue. And when you're suffering from mental health problems, you don't always know you're suffering from mental health problems. Most of the time you don't. Your brain rationalizes whatever is going on. And that's why it's so hard for people with mental health to get help, because they don't know they need help. And Antonio Brown is displaying behavior that cries out he needs help. And I don't know how you help someone in his position who isn't going to, if he doesn't want it, how do you force him? Who says, hey, I'm worried about Antonio Brown. What do? They lock him up. They evaluate his mental health. They're going to find he's crazy as fuck. That might just be Antonio Brown. I don't think that's it. I think this new Antonio Brown we have is a result of head trauma. I'm not the only one who thinks this either. But Antonio Brown, please, man, I want you back in the league. You're the baddest man, the best wide receiver. The only reason anyone is talking about who the best wide receiver is right now is because you're not there. Antonio Brown is not there to remind people who the best wide receiver in football is. It was Antonio Brown. I do want to preview baseball, but I want to wait till closer to that starting to preview the baseball season. I'll probably do a preview. I will do a preview on the NBA season when we get any kind of news about that. As soon as we get playoff or anything playoff format seeding, I will be on to talk about that. I will be talking about the UFC fights as they happen every week. Depending on the card will depend on how much time I spend talking about them, but I will talk about those. I did have and I thought it was pronounced Wale Zhang, but it's written Zhang Wale, and so maybe I had that wrong about how that's pronounced or said. But she is. Let me get back to. Come on. Oh, I know this audio is gonna play as soon as I scroll away. Maybe? No. Okay. Zhang Wale is the strawweight champion, and she says she wants Rose next. Which is Rose back? I thought she wasn't. She was still debating if she was fighting. Someone had told me, Aaron had told me, I think, that we were going to see Rose come back in a fight, but I didn't think it was going to be against Zhang Wale. But she wants Rose, which I think is very interesting. I think that we have a nasty trio of women women fighters that are champions. I would love to see these women compete against each other, but the weight class difference obviously changes things. But I think you will see these women challenge each other at some point, because I don't think that there's anyone in their divisions that are coming for them. Valentina Shevchenko is an absolute animal. I would love to see her drop down to Zhang Wale or vice versa. And I'd love to see Shevchenko go at Nunez. And I think that is a close trio. I think when you look at the men's division, that there's obviously some divisions where they're not sending their champion to another division. But these women all, I think, you could put them all in a cage, 1v1v1, and you would get, an absolute show. So I think we have every single one of these women champions are all times. Zhang is an her fight over Andrade was a perfect example of why she's a champion. I mean, just to take a hit and then deliver a nasty counter 1-2 like she does. Shevchenko just pieces people apart. She fights her fight. She does not fight anyone else's fight. And Amanda Nunez is a robot. I think we used to call Cyborg the robot because of what she did. Nunez is on a whole nother level. But I did think it was interesting to see Zhang call out Rose for that fight. I did want to talk about the log jam in the welterweight division. I would like to see. So there's an absolute log jam in the welterweight division. This welterweight. So we've got Usman, Woodley, Lawler, Hendricks, GSP. You've got Gilbert Burns now. Conor McGregor's still in the picture. So what a logjam of a division. We're just talking about, some divisions not sending their champion to another. This division could send all of these guys. It could send 5 guys to different divisions to take those belts. That's really all I had. I figured this first one would be about an hour. I'd love to expand this to about an hour and a half, 2 hours, with more content. Obviously, when sports start back up, we'll have a lot more to talk about. Can't wait for the return of baseball and basketball in whatever capacity we get them. We'll talk about baseball when that gets closer to the season starting. We'll talk about NBA as that gets closer. So I think that'll do it for today's stream. I will be sure to upload this to YouTube, to Spotify tonight. So those will be available tomorrow. And we will catch you guys next week. Bye.
Love is the only. Love. Yeah. Love is the law. Love is the only law. You should do what thou wilt. You should.
I'm skimming through the mail, fishing for a fee to feed my female ASAP. Nature is a mother, and life is a bitch. I am convinced. God coming, she just taking her time. God coming, she just taking her time. Hey, God coming, she just taking her time.